Welcome to another episode of WTF. That stands for World of Taunton and Fox. And I am joined by the Fox element of this show, and that would be Laurence Fox, known to some as Laws of Fox, known to others as a criminal, as an individual who should be in prison for years on end because of his abuses of free speech and the British legal system. Also, I am joined here. We're joined just for a moment. My daughter is she's visiting us for Christmas, and I thought I'd bring her on the show for a minute. She's not had the opportunity to meet Laurence face to face, but she is the subject of my first book, The Grace Effect. And Sasha thought she would come on here for a minute. Her two children, our grandchildren, are waiting upstairs, but thought I'd let her say hi.
Hello.
Taunton, two times Tauntons. I can't possibly win in this situation. The Grace Effect, for those who haven't read it, in England, is a book by Larry. Is about Sasha, who came originally from Ukraine, and it's kind of, whilst being a very moving story, it's also quite funny. Unfortunately, because of Ukrainian bureaucracy, but it's incredible. It's an incredible story, and I highly recommend it. And it's a great honor to meet you, Sasha. And I'm very jealous of the fact that you live in South Dakota and and you can see the Northern Lights, or North Dakota, North or South.
I've sent
South Dakota.
I've sent him some of your photos. Sasha takes brilliant, photographs of just about everything. In fact, she was taking them of these mugs for our website that just launched.
Oh, hang on, I've got to move my picture up. Oh, that's very classy.
Isn't that nice?
Larry,
you can get these.
But if you're not right-handed, then you can't see it.
Well, thanks a lot, Larry.
Yeah, there you go. So, they put the logo on this side. But see, I'm right-handed, which means that, you don't see the logo. I guess the logo is meant for you personally to see it.
Only 90% of the rest of the world are with you, so it doesn't matter. Sasha, maybe you should have got involved earlier in the business decisions here, because I think this might be a lost leader. You're going to have to go back to the factory, Larry.
Yeah, this is at the LarryAlexTauntStore.com. You need to go there and get one. What was the name of the film, Sasha, when I had you on the show last? It was, is it called Sound of Freedom?
Yes.
Sound of Freedom. Sasha has some, incredible insights into human trafficking, what that looks like. It was our great privilege to adopt Sasha when she was a little girl. She had been raised in 3 different orphanages in Ukraine. And, what's so strange is that in my mind, Sasha has always been my child. It's like I manufacture memories of her as a baby. And but she is our lovely daughter. We're so proud of her. She has just been a shining example to so many people, all the things that she's managed to accomplish and to overcome. But that's the accent you're hearing. Mine is a Southern accent. She has just a very slight Russian, accent.
She's doing it deliberately so that she doesn't have to be too close to you.
There we go.
She can hold on to her roots. You see.
There we go.
Are you proud of your dad?
I like your British accent.
Yes. This is good. I'm moving to America. I've got to move to America because, it's a step up, isn't it, for the Brits? If we come to America, Americans go, "Oh, your accent's so nice," and I'll go, "Can I please have a job then?" But in England, they don't really let me have a job, which is why my ceiling is falling in. Look.
Oh no.
No, that's because my wife doesn't check when she turns the bath on.
I wondered how that turned out. So the tub hasn't fallen through the ceiling yet.
Not quite. It's I'm going to buy a bath. We're having some building work done out there to build some more accommodation, and I'm going to buy a bath with that hole that they put in the bath where you can fill it up and it just runs away if it's not too full. We don't have that in the bath in this house.
You discovered that the hard way, didn't you?
Yeah, twice.
You discovered that the hard way. Do you have any questions for Sasha before I let her run along?
Sasha, what do you think of okay, how do I express this? Do you think that your past, and do you remember your childhood, and do you think that your early childhood has affected the way that you think today?
Yes, I think so. In terms of I see the world differently. How I see people is I have a heart for people.
And she does.
Since I didn't wasn't taken care of, when I see people and if I ever see somebody be bullied or any of that, kind of I'm up to stand up and fight.
Good for
Sasha's
you.
very bold. She's very bold.
I'm not afraid to fight. Even I didn't get disciplined when I was in orphanage. So when my family started the discipline, I would even put my fist in front of my dad, which I'm sure that was really funny for them. But I was a naughty girl.
I wouldn't like to put my fist in front of Larry. He's got that kind of. There's a little brooding part of his personality which I don't want to explore too much. Sasha, it's such a great privilege to meet you, and I can't wait to meet you in person properly. And Christopher, I need to meet Christopher too. But I looked at the photos your dad sent me of those of the Northern Lights and a tractor and that life, and I just thought, wow, that's a life that one must, it must be a hard life, but it's one I'm very envious of, I have to say, in a lot of ways.
You wouldn't like the cold. I'd rather be here the warmth.
How cold does it get?
It gets very cold, like minus 15, depends what day it is.
Do you but do you and your husband and your do you work all year round, or is there a period where you just can't
The
do anything? Because
December that we get mostly my husband doesn't work I mean he's busy in the harvest and the plants in spring.
right.
And then he's kind of busy in the summertime taking the hay, but after that, this is around the year where we're not so busy.
What do you do in the downtime? Because that sounds good for me. It's like if there's nothing to be done outside, then you can stay inside by the fire.
Yes, exactly.
He spends
Oh,
an awful lot of time repairing the equipment during the
mm.
downtime. So that's an opportunity to sort of get the machines back in order and everything exactly the way it needs to be and get going again. But their farming operation is a very big farming operation, and
How
he's
many
very good
acres?
at it. And Sasha's a very
I'm the
good wife and
cook.
mother.
I'm the cook.
She's a very
What?
talented cook.
Oh man, I we can we do a South Dakota Alabama trip? That would be nice. I'd like to go
I
and
don't see
visit.
why not.
Yeah, I'd
I
love
don't
to.
see why not. Sasha, I'll let you run along. I know
Sasha,
that.
lovely to meet you
Well, I
finally.
wanted to say one more thing, Laurence,
Okay.
about my past is what I learned the most about my past is yes, I went through the hard times in life and suffering, but I've more than anything I learned that God is with me, that he'll never let me go no matter what things come in life, because there's always going to be challenges in life that I believe that I can go through because God already helped me to go through what I was. So, and I feel like when people go through hard things, they're likely to feel closer to God than more than anything, as my dad would agree with that with accident and all that. You
I
feel
think
his presence, and I feel very special.
Share the screen.
I feel very special to know that God chose me. Like it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't the people who did evil, it wasn't God's fault. It wasn't God's fault. It was the sin of the world, but I feel very like special in terms of having a relationship with God that other people don't experience. Like
yeah.
his presence.
From suffering. I think
Yes.
in suffering you kind of get to know God better, don't you? It's
Yeah.
not when you're kind of running around having a laugh when you get to know God. What a great way of looking at things. It's the right way to look at it as well. Every what the secular version of that is no good deed goes unpunished. So it's it's a great thing. And you are lucky. I know Larry, so you are lucky. So you've got a great dad, to be fair. And I can't wait to meet you properly and sit down and not get punched in the face by you.
Thank you. And I'm very blessed to have my family and all that. I know it's not Thanksgiving, but it's what I'm grateful for.
Well, it's Thanksgiving
Give
all the
thanks at any
time.
time.
It's
Yeah.
Thanksgiving all the time. My sister said this. We were having this funny like back and forth with my family about Christmas and like who's coming to which house and who's going where and all of that sort of stuff. And my sister's, I think it was her husband actually, he wrote an email and he said, we do all realize that Christmas is a little bit more important than us. You know, and I thought it was quite a good sort of check to say, you know, everyone's going, well, I can't do that then, I've got to do this then. But we in the end we're all going to be together, which is great. Are you all going to be together for Christmas?
We're having Christmas here, early Christmas.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're here for
lovely.
this week, and then they head home, and they'll have Christmas. They'll have 2 Christmases, but we're so thrilled to have them here, and it should be a lot of fun. So she was willing to come on and say hello, and I'm so glad she did.
I love your
Good.
accent, by the way. You will get
Thank you.
job here very quickly.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Dad will hire you. He's looking
Yeah.
for
There you go.
He won't, my timeliness is not correct for him. He doesn't like
Thank you, sweetheart.
it.
All righty. Did you hear that?
Bye.
She said, "Nice to meet you, Laurence."
Yeah, she's awesome, man. Well done. Well done. Isn't it incredible that from, you know, what your paths crossed out of 1 in 6 billion people? How
Well,
incredible.
in God's timing, things happen the way He wants them to, and I have to really, really say, her champion or champions rather. I wasn't on the mission trip to work in the orphanage there. That was Lori and my
The
wife
boys.
Lori and our boys, and they met Sasha there and texted me. Do you think we could adopt her? And I told them I haven't met her, but I'm very open to that. And here we are, all these years later, and what a fine and remarkable young woman she is, and she's just as bold as she can be. And
Off-road vehicles and orphans. That's your thing.
there we go, off road.
Okay,
And,
so
and Sasha's so funny because I was gonna take her down, to do the machine guns. Rather, her husband down to the machine guns, but then I realized Sasha's going to want to go on that.
yeah.
That's her kind of thing. She just loves that sort of thing. But anyway, brother, how are you doing?
Well,
What's
just
going on?
quick shout out to Lake Martin Machine Guns. Do head
Yes.
over there and if you're ever in Alabama and Lake Martin, do go over there because not only do you get to fire all the machine guns, you get a history lesson at the same time,
Yeah.
which is a really wonderful thing, and is special. How am I getting on? We're above ground, so I spoke to you about this before. The money that we're building outside, and we
Yeah. I
live
want to see
in.
pictures of that when we're done.
Yeah, we live in a part of England that would have been underwater not too long ago. So it's the flattest part of England, East Anglia. It's kind of like the Netherlands. It just should be underwater. So you get about that much topsoil, and then it's hard clay, really like
Are
difficult
you
clay.
are you putting your finger in any dikes?
Not every single time I try and get the YouTube channel back to normal, and you but you see, if I curse and cuss and swear, you'll be upset. But you can say if I put my finger in any dikes. No, I'm not. I leave that to the immigrants. They don't do that in dikes. No, so we finally it's such a great metaphor for life. You know, you're interested in things, so you'll like take doors off cars and get new doors and lighter doors and go, oh, it's better this way, and this is a better winch, and you know, you care man stuff, you care about it. So as an unqualified builder, which I am watching this process of building something that will be there for a very, very long time. And it's incredible. All of the money you spend goes into the ground. Before you even see a single brick, the foundation is everything. So
Yeah,
it's,
you were telling me about that.
yeah.
That sounded pretty wild, the way that whole thing is done and the way they're using the shells in order to, create a mortar
No,
and
they don't.
and
They don't use the shells. In the olden days, this house, which is a very old house, they just used the shells. They just said,
Okay,
"Ah,
that's what I'm thinking of. You
we'll,
told me
we'll,
about that house then.
we'll just chuck the whole thing on oyster shells and it'll be fine." Now, no, no, no. They've got cleverer ways of doing it now. And I bet you that building, as beautifully and wonderfully as they've done it, will last less long than this house. But
Well, isn't that true for just about anything? The appliances these days are practically disposable. They're almost all coming from China. There's almost no US manufacturing, anymore. And my mother, yeah, as you know, we've been moving her into her cottage, and there was just no. She had for the whole of my life the same washer, dryer, and refrigerator. I mean,
yeah,
think about that. The same washer, dryer, and refrigerator. And I bought Lori a new refrigerator, and I went and got the Cadillac of refrigerators, a KitchenAid, which is supposed to be a very good brand and has all these additional features. $3,500, and already it's what 2-3 years old, already starting to have some issues with it. And I'm just thinking this is just absolute absurdity. But I want to talk about something that will seem, I don't know if it seems basic or if it seems obscure, but I want to talk about the roles of men and women, the differences between men and women. Are you open to that kind of discussion?
Lizzie and I do not fight, but last night we had a strong disagreement.
Okay. Well, tell me about it. I'm interested. Bring it.
Okay, so I don't know why anyone would care about this. I've been saying for a long time, we have a lot of children in this house. So I've been saying we need to get on top of waste disposal because we have chickens, we have all of this stuff. Chickens attract rats, waste disposal. So we have this tiny little, very fashionable little bin at the end of the kitchen, which looks beautiful. You press the button, it goes. Zzzz. I think you can actually just hover your hand over it and it goes zzzz, like that. And I'm like, this is pointless. That fills up within 30 seconds of the children being here. It's full. And it's be emptied relentlessly, relentlessly. I said, I'm going to buy a galvanized um, aluminium bin, like you see, trash can, like you see anywhere in the world. And I'm going to stick it in the kitchen because I want to not empty the bin every 5 minutes. She was not pleased about that. So she decides that the role of the woman is the aesthetic of the house and how the house looks. And I am the man who cleans up the dog shit. So, so because we've got building work going on and we have 5 dogs in the house, I've cordoned off a bit of the garden away from where all the building work's going on for the dogs to go do their business if they're not on a walk or something like that. And it fills up quite quickly with 5 dogs worth of dog business. So I go out with my little thing and I pick it all up. And on the weekend, I'm outside, I'm picking it up, and it's really raining. And I'm like, oh, I wish it was frozen so I could get a little frozen dog doo doo up. But no. And I've got a bag in one hand and the picker upper in the other hand. And I slip and I land on the giant bag of maybe 4 or 5 days worth of large and small dog excrement, which then explodes over the side of my face and all over my clothes. And I hurt myself because, at 47, you're still young, but at 47, you bang your shoulder, it'll hurt for 5 days. It still hurts a little bit. But I stood there and I thought to myself, well, in the pouring rain, covered in dog shit, I thought, I've got to still clean out the chickens because my dominion is the outside of our property. I have to deal with the outside of property, which I'm very happy doing. But I thought, so I walked around for about another hour and a quarter just with like dog shit all down the
Well,
side of my face.
I'm going to make you feel like you got off easy. This was yesterday for you?
That was the weekend.
Okay. Well, yesterday for me, We have, and I know people listening are going, when are they going to really get to the real issues here? It cracks me up. People put in the comments, start program at
Yeah, yeah.
15 minutes in, or whatever. This is just a conversation every week between two outstanding individuals, one who's British, one
Handsome.
who's American. So you're supposed to listen to every single second of this show, or you're missing out on things that will really stimulate brain growth and development. And let me tell you what happened here. See, now in rural America, I'm sure like what you have there, we have septic tanks. So we're getting, the toilets aren't flushing. So I go out to see what the problem is. And I had the septic tanks pumped a couple of months ago. So I know that it's not because of that there's something in the line, so somebody has flushed a lot of tissue down the toilet or something they shouldn't have. So I go and I take the lid off of the clean out. It's, just unscrews. It's a cap that unscrews, and I'm holding it down so that it doesn't spray in my face. And of course, it looks like oil, except it's not oil. So
Well, it's on its way to becoming oil.
that's right. So I let all of that excrement, run out, and then I'm running a snake, as we call it, a metal line down there all the way in it. And Lori in the dark is holding a flashlight for me. And when we're done, I have human excrement all over my arms.
I hope some of it was mine.
And Lori said to me, as a nurse, there are many things I have done, but she says that's something I could never do. And I just like, well, this is just life. We just do what we got to do, and we move forward. But that was my experience. But coming back to what you're talking about with Lizzie,
But hang
it
on.
sounds
Wait. I've got to interrupt you.
okay.
So a British politician, a little bit like what Ozzy Osbourne's daughter, whatever her name was, a British politician, the head of the Green Party, which is the new kind of far leftist party in Britain. He is by it. He's been saying, he literally said on live on TV, he was like, "We need immigrants. Who else is going to wipe our bums when we're old?" And I was like, "Oh, it's so true of leftists. They're usually rich and they don't want to get their hands dirty." So anyway, there you go. Carry on. And so Laurie said, "Oh, does that mean Laurie's a Democrat?" Yeah, not a,
No, not at all. Lori's willing to do hard work, and some of it, can be miserable. But I have never. It's funny to me when I was speaking at Oxford some years ago. I was there with a buddy of mine who's a physician, and he told me later that a guy had come up to him after my talk. He was waiting for me to sign a book, and Steve, my physician friend, is chatting with him, and the guy said to him, I'm sure I could never do what he does because I'm sure, he went to all the posh schools and, you know, didn't have the path that I had. And Steve laughed and said, Larry, Larry waited tables and cleaned up vomit in bars and drove a forklift and drove a truck and did all of these kinds of things. I promise you, he was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Absolutely not. So that's not been my experience. But Lori and I do. And you still haven't quite told us what the conflict part was about with
the
with
conflict.
Lizzie. And I want to say at the front end, I take Lizzie's side no matter what.
Of
But
course you do.
I Lori and I do have in our marriage, we have a division of duties. And there's just certain things that are understood that I do. Mowing the grass, for instance, difficulty with the automobiles. I do that. I see to that. Most of the things on the interior of the house, I don't do. It's not to say I think myself too good to do them, but Lori doesn't want me in her kitchen. She would prefer I'd stay out of it. And on
Yeah.
those rare occasions I get in there, she's kind of like, not really. I just prefer you move along. And, if there's something that's not working in the house, I'm the guy who's supposed to take care of that. And that's just, there's never been a conversation about that where we make a list, on a blackboard and, she says, these are my duties, these are yours. It's just always been, I don't know, maybe it's some of it is sort of inherited, tradition, but it's just understood that these are things that I do and these are things that she does.
Well, I think that the taking out the trash has now become a thing because Lizzie, what she does, because in England and in Britain, you pay every year that you pay a council tax. You'll have an equivalent, a district tax or whatever you pay, for someone to get rid of your garbage, and we every year it gets more expensive and they take less stuff. So sometimes they'll come to get your bag, they'll look at it and they'll go, no, there's one thing in that bag that I'm not going to take, or the bag is the wrong color or something like that. So what Lizzie does, because she doesn't want to engage with the government on that level, is she just doesn't do that. She puts all the trash in a big thing like you have near yours, and then after a while, she goes and chucks it in the truck and she drives it up to the dump and she throws it in there
Yeah,
because
and that's exactly what we do. Yeah.
she doesn't want to engage with the government on that thing. Whereas I've got 5 dogs who like the rest of my dinner or any bits of stuff that have been picked up, and they can open the bin because you know what, you can just hover your hand over the bin and dogs aren't stupid, so they go, and the bin goes, "Zzz," and then they get in. So when we're talking about the roles of men and women, I have exactly the same thing with Lizzie. She will not. She doesn't want me anywhere near the kitchen, even though I spent 10 years as a single father making food for kids, and I'm not a bad cook, and I'm not a bad person like that. But she's like, that's my space. You deal with the outside, and we never really come into conflict. And as you said, it wasn't a contract. It's not. It's an unspoken contract, but the trash has created a demon in our lives. And, it caused a bit of a ruckus last night.
See, I kind of look forward to taking out the trash because I get in my Jeep and I work my way up to the top of the hill. And I like burning stuff, so we do a fair amount of that. So that's
Yeah.
great. That
Oh,
works pretty well. But the
frozen.
broader discussion that I think of when it plays to this, the reason I brought this subject up is I was recalling because of a conversation I had yesterday with a young man when I was buying shoes of all things. He was talking about where he went. I was just chatting with him, as you know I do, and I was asking where he'd gone to university, and he was telling me, and years ago, in once upon a time in my life, at at the institution where I taught, this kind of Harrow or Eton like sort of institution, we would take our students on a college tour, and that was 18 schools in the South, from Vanderbilt all the way to Georgetown and DC, so Nashville to DC. And then the next year, we would take them to 22, Boston, Philadelphia, New York. So that would be, largely the Ivy League institutions. And one of the things that I discovered that kind of fascinated me is that when I would go to the, say male only institutions, there are not a lot of those left anymore, but there are some. And then the women only institutions. So let's say Hampton Sydney, which is a male only institution. And then I would go over to say Sweetbriar or Hollins or Randolph Macon, which are all girls institutions. Those campuses felt radically different from co-ed institutions. They felt way different, and the the guys at Hampton Sydney, you would go there, and I would talk to, say, some of my former students in some of these kind of places, and they would tell you that it sort of felt like Lord of the Flies, because it's just all guys, just felt like Lord of the Flies. And then you go over to the female only institutions, and the women there would tell me a lot of them wanted to transfer out because they said it starts feeling really catty, really really catty. And the guys at Hampton Sydney were generally fairly satisfied with their situation because they were surrounded by these female institutions. So there are lots of girls. There are a lot of opportunities for them. But what kind of came out was that women have kind of a civilizing if just imagine that you came here and it was just the two of us for a month. Lori and Lizzie go off to Capri or something, and they leave us here to our own devices. Can you imagine what they would come home to? I mean, we would be painting our bodies and dancing around a pig's head, by the time they came home. We would have guns just kind of sitting around loosely in the house. We'd make almost nothing. We would be, ordering in food all the time. It would begin to take on a kind of a barbarous sort of feeling. And yet, with the female institutions, it takes on something else that is equally perverse, isn't the word, but
Pernicious.
equally
It's like
problematic. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah, it's men. You're right about. I think we'd kill things and eat them and cook them over fires. To be
Yes.
fair,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, but if we didn't succeed on the first night, we'd have Mr. Chow's. I agree. Men don't have that, but I think it's emblematic of the man woman thing, that because women don't have physical power over men, they have emotional power over men. Evolution and nature has created this idea. So Lizzie says jump and I say how high, after saying don't ask me to jump, I'll never jump when you ask me to jump, whilst jumping.
So true.
And but the good thing is it's a mirage, isn't it? And it's in the best and most complementary form. Marriage is one person is able to do the thing that the other person just will not be able to do properly. And women make homes. That's what they do. And even feminists make homes. They have to, even if they're making it for themselves, so they never have to be near a man again. But if you leave a man by himself, I lived by myself for a while after I broke up with my first long-term girlfriend. And I just spent the whole day cleaning, because I was like, right, I've got to make the house clean, go do it. And it was so unnatural. And actually, what I should have been doing was what I ended up doing, which was just going out and trying to find a new woman. Like, we're meant to be. It's when it works beautifully. And this is why you see the sort of the disruption in the force with feminists, as you go, God, you look so miserable. You look so unhappy. And the only thing that's going to make you happy is to make me unhappy. And that's the opposite of what a marriage is. A marriage is two people journeying down a path, hitting great catastrophes like the trash can disaster, which I laid out earlier. Great life-ending tragedies, and working through them. I mean, we'll
Well,
have
I
to.
mean, it's the word that you use there that is the right word. I think is complementary. And what I'm getting at here is the manner in which the remarkable, miraculous way that God has designed men and women, and that there are innate differences between the two of us. Now, I'm not breaking news here when I say that the left has endeavored to annihilate the differences between men and women and say that a woman can be trapped inside a man's body. I mean, it's absolutely a clown show. These kinds of things. But I'm very mindful of those differences, and I'm very appreciative of those differences. I think of when our children were small, um, and to some extent, this even is true today. But when our children were small, they fall and hurt a knee, they instinctively go to mom.
Yeah.
Because it's not because dad is unfeeling, but dad's going to say, oh, you're fine. You're going to get over that. All right, buddy. You're go on. And mom is going to be much more nurturing, much more sympathetic, hugging, warm, this kind of thing. My children seek me out when I always say that we're like fire extinguishers, that, your children seek you out when there's a problem. When I get a call, if Zachary or Michael or Christopher, or for that matter, Sasha, call, I generally answer it because I'm going, okay, there's something they need moved or they want me to fix. They're
But you're
needing
like,
something. When they
the,
want a listening ear, they go to their mother.
a family is like a really well-run factory. Like, it's like Henry Ford. certain departments can do certain things. So you have to, it is absolutely instinctively, it's not toxic masculinity, which what they like to call it, for a dad to go brush yourself up, stand up and carry on, because that's what you're going to have to do in life. And also it's not bad for a dad to say, does it really hurt? Because if it really hurts, then we're going to have to go to hospital and we're going to need to know. And can you touch your shoulder if you broke a collarbone or whatever? But you do need the male. It's not indifference, but it is like, come on, you're going to be okay. Because if you don't have that, you're missing half of the process of dealing with pain. And seeing as life is suffering in many, many ways, you need to understand the different facets of that and the different stages of it. And the instinctive male reaction to go, you're okay, you'll be right. But you know what men can do that women can't? Not can't, but I think that men, and I noticed this, I've had a couple of examples of this, not in the too distant past. I think men have instincts about danger that women have exactly the same instinct, but about another part of danger. So when it comes to children, women will know if something instinctively is dangerous and they will go, this is not right. Men will go, okay, this is a danger I'm happy and I'm comfortable allowing my child to experience. And a man would be much further over to one side and a woman would be further over to the other side, but you meet in the middle somewhere and you create what is a well-rounded person that way. You don't, by people trying to identify in certain roles, like, nothing good comes from that. They've just thrown out trans women from the Women's Institute in Britain, which is like the oldest thing in the world where they, meet up and have cake and talk about women's problems, but they're not feminists. And they've just thrown all the trans men out of it. And I'm like, good. You can get back to making cakes and whinging about what assholes men are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, when I was in the hospital, I may have said this to you before. I don't know, but it bears repeating. My nurses, the female nurses, were infinitely better caregivers just by
Yeah.
nature. They're I mean, there are exceptions to this. We're speaking in generalities here, but they were better caregivers because they were much more nurturing. That said, when it came to certain things, like moving me, for instance, every day they would have to lift me up and put sheets beneath me. I would say, of course, my mouth is wired shut, and but I would try to say to the women, "Don't do this. Go get the men," because they were strong enough to lift me, quickly. So with all my ribs broken and my back broken, the women would kind of drag me. The men would just go pop pop, and it's done.
Yeah.
So they brought something, but I think part of the reason for that is because when men would come to see me, let's say we didn't know each other at the time, but I think it's because men we want to fix things. So my male, friends would come and they'd pace in front of my bed and look uncomfortable and like they didn't want to be there and that they were hating it and they're trying to think of ways to fix it. And women would come and they would hold your hand or stroke your hair or just tell you that they love you, and it was so much better. But
Yeah.
men seemed helpless in a situation, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Is I think part of that difference between us is that in certain situations we want to fix things, we want to control them. That's part of our nature, and women approach it in a slightly different way. But I'm also keenly aware that when Lori is away for a week or so, I might the first day, maybe even two, think, okay, well, it's kind of nice to have the house to myself, and I'm going to enjoy, just watching sports and uh, movies where lots of Nazis get killed. But I am so ready for her to come back because I feel like I don't function particularly well, and I
Because
start
it's,
reaching a place where I'm not very productive. And anyway, it's fascinating to me the differences between men and women. And I'll add this too for you, Lizzie, just using you as an example, and Lori for me too, but Lizzie gives you a softer presentation, public presentation, because there's you as the crazy tweeter, as the public wants to see you, and then she brings a soft, gentle side to that. I see that with Trump and Melania. Imagine what the White House would be with just JD Vance, no Usha, no Melania, JD Vance and Donald Trump in there. That place would be
They
utterly
they
barbaric.
they'd be shirts off. They'd be covered in like blood. They'd be doing, yeah. I mean, you're right though. That choice, and I was saying, I had this interesting experience with my son last week, and it was very moving. And because yeah, and I mention it because you talk about the Nazi movies. So I think that when I'm hanging out with my youngest son, I'm like, we watch like films where loads of people die. That's what we do. It's like we watch war films and
Of
he's the
course.
hero. He's the hero and you like it. And he's sort of, he's a very he gets me, he understands what I'm like. So he puts up with it for a while. Many years when I say a while. And then he says to me, I saw this film and I really want to show you this film. And I was like, does it have loads of dead Nazis in it? And, and he's like, no. Will you watch it with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he puts on this film. It is the wokest film I've ever seen, but it's pre-woke, right? So it's 2013. It's made, and I know that this is not only a good film, but it's a great film because it has an actress in it who I can't bear even watching. I called Emma Watson. She was in the Harry Potter movies. I can't bear watching this woman. She is so, her going on about trans women. I just am like, shut up. I can't deal with it. And we watched this
J.K.
movie together.
Rowling has just dragged her. It's
I
been
know.
great.
Yeah. But this film is called The Perks of Being a Wallflower,
I've
and
never heard of it.
it is an absolutely stunning independent film. It's got everything you want. It's got trans, gay, drugs, kids, feminism, the whole lot. But the central story is about an uncomfortable boy falling in love with this girl who's just a bit older than him. She's the old American girl. And Emma Watson is absolutely stunningly brilliant in it. It is such a good movie. And I thought to myself, it really brought a check to my cynicism over whatever progressivism is, or the arty left-wing scene. Was I could see that's the one, yeah. Each and every one of those actors is a very, very fine actor in that
But are
film.
you saying that this is making fun of wokedom, or
No, no, no.
no?
It was preempting. It's 2013 or 2012, and my son was very clear to point that out to me. He said, He said when he was trying to convince me to watch it, when I was going, but surely we can watch the Nazis dying, or that film where the one shot film where we follow around Chris Hemsworth, or one of the Hemsworth brothers, who just gets shot 100 times. And he gently looked it out there. But what he said was, he said it was made in 2012, and he kept saying to me, it's made in 2012. So it's before all of the madness started. That's what he said. And I would recommend that small independent film to anybody. Beautifully shot. It is an absolute one of those. Oh, it's like Grease. When Sandy turns up at the end of Grease in her leather pants, and you're just like,
It
whoa,
made quite an impression on me in my childhood. Yes.
yeah. It has that. It has that quality to it, but it's very, very pre-progressive, pre-woke, and it has all of the echoes of it. But it's what I thought. This
But I don't want
this
to see Emma Watson in leather pants.
No, she's not in leather pants. But
Okay, good.
they do a kind of it's very transy, and it's that part of it is really annoying. But what is it's held together by this central story of what we've talked about for this conversation that we've had so far, which is that the man and the woman are different. And in order really to love a woman, you kind of have to worship her in a way. You kind of have to think, without you, I'm fine in the house for 2 days. I can pick my ass, my nose. I don't need to clean up after that. I can walk around in my kecks. It's fine. But after a couple of days, you're like, there's no substance to this house. It doesn't mean anything. And that film has it. And this kid is such a brilliant actor. And it's made best part of 10 years ago, and more than 10 years ago. It's really, so I highly recommend people watch it. And my son, I sat there on the sofa next to him, and he looked at me at every important moment because he wanted to see whether I am this sort of crazed far right extremist, that he needed a little validation that I had a bit of a soul, I think, at some point. So there I am, crying my eyes out watching this film with him. And I think it really reassured him that, we're not all tied into a role, but there are some fundamental roles that we're tied into. And as men, as you say, one of our fundamental roles is to fix things, to mend things, to make them good. And that's not necessarily artistic. But if you read The Grace Effect, I haven't read the Faith Crucifixions yet, but I will when we finally go on honeymoon. There is a thing in men where men can give a little. We live in a world of very concreted positions, and the overwhelmingly victorious ones at the moment are the failing ones, like trans women or feminism or toxic masculinity. Whereas actually you can go, I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a sensitive guy. This is a great film. Thank you for showing it to me. And we really bonded over it. So I thought it was lovely.
It sounds like a very interesting film. I'll have to take a look at it. We've been on a binge of old Christmas movies,
Mm.
so that's fun, and I like discovering ones that were previously unknown to me, that are sort of somehow maybe because the rights, who owned the rights, there was some dispute and it sort of went into mothballs or something like that. But we've been enjoying watching all the old classic Christmas movies from the 40s and 50s and 60s, and some that are a little newer that we enjoy.
How's mum?
She's doing quite well. Here we are, a couple of weeks after her accident, and she's been healing very nicely. She still has a little ways to go, but I sense that now that she's in her cottage, she's very, her spirits are up, and she seems pretty enthusiastic, and she's been exercising on her own, which is, to me, is always a very good sign. And probably the biggest thing, Laurence, that has really changed for her in having this little cottage. Yeah, our I think God designed us in a way that we need place. We identify with place. We identify with Russell Kirk wrote a beautiful little short story called Ex Tenebris, Out of Darkness. Back in the 1950s, he was a friend of T.S. Eliot, and it's a very clever little ghost story, actually. But he's without lecturing you, he's telling the story of an old woman who's been away with a British Army officer in India for the whole of her life, and he's passed away, and now she's come back to this little village where she grew up in, and the socialist city planners want to move her out, and they can't seem to budge her. They keep thinking she's going to die, and yet the more she tends to her roses, she tends to her garden, the younger it seems she gets. And that she's ancient. No one can even remember when she was born, but somehow this woman refuses to die, and she starts kind of perking up. But what Kirk is doing in that short story is he's showing how socialism makes no account for the soul, and that's because socialism is, by definition, godless. It is, Dostoevsky pointed this out in the Brothers Karamazov, that it's repetitive to say atheist and socialist because they're one and the same, but they make no account for the soul. And in the Christian faith, we believe very differently. Of course, we believe there is a soul, but we also believe that the earth, your identity with it, your place, that those things matter. And when you have the privilege of growing up in, let's say, if it's a decent place, in the same home or in the same town, or that those things become they become touchstones in your life. You see them, and they bring back memories, and they remind you of who you are, and you think, that's where I graduated, and it was right there that I had my first kiss, and it was over here that I was married. And I remember a very wonderful occasion with one of my children. And my mom now she's been in a bedroom in the house, but see, now she has a space that's all hers, and it's sort of being filled with her own kind of spirit, if you get my meaning. And now people can come, and rather than just sort of crowding in and sitting on the bed, looking down to her when they're talking to her, she's sitting there in her chair, and there's a nice sofa, and there's a fireplace, and there's a little kitchen, and so she's getting lots of visitors because now people have a place to be. And she's got, light is coming in through the windows, and she's sitting and enjoying there's something about that I can't quite put my finger on, but the significance of place, the significance of a space that's yours, and the significance of beauty, the importance of beauty in the development of a healthy soul.
How is it that those of us who believe in that kind of Roger scrutiny, he expressed it well, didn't he? Somewhere people and anywhere people. And I think it's really interesting that you say that socialists and atheists are the same thing. And it's so fascinating, this kind of identifying as something. So a socialist would identify as being kind just before shooting you for the sake of kindness, you know. And then you think of your mum, and I think of my dad, they're a similar age. They're almost the same age, yeah, actually. Your mum has had a different path in her later years than my dad has, but there, there's something about how irreconcilable those two positions are that I find so galling. Because I don't want to be a hectoring oaf and just go, "You're so wrong. Your life has no meaning. You're preaching to me about being kind while trying to destroy everything that I love and I worship and I see my home, my country, my place, the place where I belong, the thing that creates that sense of genuine identity, a sense of true identity, and they just want to rip it away from you all the time. And I think it. I feel so. I actually feel sorry for them in a way. They're also my sworn enemy because they create a chaos which is unparalleled in this world, and all of the darkness. When they come and quote to you, they go, "Well, look at what happened in the Catholic Church, and look at what happened here, and look at what happened, look at what." And I'm like, well, paedophiles are going to look out places where they can molest children. That's going to happen. But that doesn't make them Christians. You won't find, I don't think you'd find a Christian paedophile. I don't think you would. And in the same way as I don't think you'd find well, okay. Oh, God, my brain is so rambling. Would you find a Christian that believed in the death penalty for
Well,
child
yes, because
rapists?
God believed in the death penalty, but I think what you're getting at is this, that if a Christian is, somebody who says they're a Christian is part of a grooming gang, it's against the faith they say they espouse. Jesus did not endorse that, versus the religion of peace, which does endorse it. So Jesus himself said in John chapter 16, verses 2 and 3, he said, "The time is coming where there will be people who will kill you and say they're doing it in my name."
Yeah.
So Jesus himself is predicting that those kinds of things are going to happen. But if you're out, pillaging and destroying and doing awful things to people. You can say you're doing it in Christ's name, but Christ's own words condemn you and say you're a liar and the truth is not in you. But I'm mindful of the fact that we're designed for in God's creation. Is testimony to this. I have a deep need for beauty. I have a deep need for beauty. It feeds me. It feeds my soul. And years ago, I had an office. This is one of the crap jobs I had, and in my youth when I was working my way through university, it was a windowless office, absolutely windowless, and I could not stay in there. I found it so oppressive that I had to leave it. I had to get out. And there's a few of these brilliant accounts on Twitter that show you, let's say, 17th century, 18th century rather, Baroque, architecture, and then
Yeah.
the oppressive stuff of, let's say, the Khrushchev era, or if you like, the socialist architecture of that era in Britain, let's say the 1960s and 70s. Compare that crap to St. Paul's. You mean it's oppressive, it's soulless, and your mind, you subconsciously process it, and something sort of happens to you, inside these. We were talking about Sasha in my book, the grace effect. Every government building that we were in Ukraine, we were there for a long time. I've been in Ukraine 7 times, and they're all designed to beat you down. You go inside them, and they're clunky, they're inhumane, they're not designed for anything but a practical function, and even that it doesn't achieve particularly well. So no one said, you know what, it'd be nice to put a big bay window here, or
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice to put some beautiful flowers, outside, or if this was pointing, towards the west so we could see the sunset. None of that, factors into it. And as I'm watching, this happening with my mom, going from just a bedroom, and a nice bedroom, but living there, for your whole life, or the latter part of your life, I just thought this has to change. She needs something different than that. And you're seeing her soul begin to blossom as a result of it. And you, by the way, you getting out of London, you did it for similar reasons. It was feeling kind of soulless and concrete jungle. And then what do I start seeing appearing on your social media? You taking these beautiful walks along a creek or a seashore, and the dogs are sprinting ahead of you, and even they are responding to that. And so you've experienced the same thing. You've sought it.
Yeah, I did, and I sought it from very young age as well. So this isn't the first time I've lived in the countryside, but we went today to walk the dogs at 3 in the afternoon. When, in thanks to whatever the crazy socialist um, system of moving the clocks forward or back, however it worked, means that it's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. So we take the dogs at 3, and we're walking into a sunset, and it is absolutely stunning. And I sit there and I go, I used to walk up to my front door in my house in London, and my hand would start shaking because I didn't want to leave the house, because I didn't want to enter the world that we're told is so wonderful. This diversity is our greatest strength world. I
Saki
didn't.
Khan just tweeted how great London is.
Well, I know, but if you look into all of the organisations that have voted London so wonderful, you'll find that they're all paid for by Sadiq Khan or the Mayor of London, or a lot of them
Of
are.
course.
And
Lendonistan.
I was watching. I was speaking to Calvin yesterday, and I was watching the Nick Fuentes interview with Piers Morgan, which is quite interesting. And Nick Fuentes said to Piers Morgan, and I just thought he said two things that really made me laugh. But the first one was, Piers Morgan said, I've got sons that can have concerns about immigration, but are also really empathetic to, the changing multicultural landscape of London. And Nick Fuentes said they sound gay. Which I thought was,
Well, I don't agree with really anything Nick Fuentes says.
I'm
He's
not,
a
I'm
real
not,
POS, but
I'm not
that's a
trying
statement
to.
I would agree with.
I'm not trying to advocate for Nick Fuentes. I don't know anything
I know
about
you're
him,
not.
but I just watched this interview because I thought, I'd be interested to know.
It's a good
And
retort. That sounds accurate to me.
uh, and we have this class of people in England, and you have a class of them in America as well. And you have it very much in your political class, and you have it very much in your establishment class, which is this idea that however much suffering you go through for the sake of your own self-flagellation is a wonderful thing. So Nick Fuentes, as far as I can gather, this is the only interview I've ever seen Nick Fuentes ever do, and I know that people don't go close to him. The other thing he said was Piers Morgan started going on about the Holocaust, and I
I'm
am
sorry, about
naturally
what?
the Holocaust.
Okay, yes.
So I am very I just the idea of 14 million people on Earth, the best part of a third of them being killed, really hurts me. And I think these people need protecting. But Nick Fuentes' view was, and he said he was representative of his generation, and what was to turn around and say, "Is it too soon to talk about it? Seeing as you black people want to talk about reparations all the time, can we talk about this stuff?" And I thought, you know what? The entire system of society, and certainly America, you've done USAID. The way that USAID was weaponized to try and create more and more and more and more division, is there an opportunity? I'm not saying that we need to talk about the Holocaust, but why should discussing certain things be banned? And I think that was the point he was trying to make to Piers Morgan. And I think if you've got the time to watch it, and I would recommend it to people, to watch it. He's a very arrogant guy, Nick Fuentes, and that's fine. But he absolutely schools Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan lost his job in America on CNN for talking about mass shootings. Like he was some great authority on mass shootings and he understood gun laws and stuff like that. And Ben Shapiro sat opposite him and schooled him. He explained to him that 90% or the best part of 90% of the mass shootings are committed with a handgun and they're committed by black men. He's like, there you go. Half the crime in America is committed by black men against black men. That's a problem, right? And Piers Morgan was sat there going, no, 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 but all the mass shooters are white. And he's like, yeah, but what? And Nick Fuentes was trying to explain the denominator versus the where the brain goes. But he was just trying to explain to Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan, this sort of desperate attempt at liberalism to say you can sit on one side of the fence and go, um, gun violence is committed by all people. And Nick Fuentes is saying to him, well, it's not really. It's basically committed by, between 5 and 7% of the American population commit 50% of the murder. Let's talk as to why that is. He doesn't do it in a very charming way. He's a very unappealing personality. But I thought, you know, he's now being allowed into the conversation. He's being interviewed by everybody. And this guy in England, he'd be in jail. He would be in prison. And that made me think, thank God for America that you can have this guy who will say the most, what I think are appalling things, but he will be allowed to say them. I don't know. I've gone off on a tangent, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, Piers Morgan, I'm not a fan of Piers Morgan. I don't have an intense dislike of him. I just, by and large, just deem him as, kind of milk toast and irrelevant. He has had his moments. He had one
He's worth
with
$100 million. His media company is now worth $100 million.
Well, clearly a capitalist, and good for him that he's managed to achieve that. He's had his moments from time to time with people like, say, Tucker Carlson or some others, and I can applaud him for a willingness to wade into certain topics that maybe others don't want to wade into. But part of the problem I have, which has motivated a big aspect of my work, like USAID, with I'll call the media class, like Piers Morgan, is that I don't really think they ever rub elbows with people in the real world that isn't actually highly controlled. So they put on a flak jacket and a helmet, and they're ushered out by their bodyguards and all the cameras, and stand in front of a green screen, or maybe at a distance, while Gaza is being bombed or something, and pretend that they're really sort of in the thick of it. I don't think that I thought this was really interesting. And when you do read the book, The Faith of Christopher Hitchens, Christopher was part of that media class, the champagne sipping, Manhattanites. And he became very aware of this towards the end of his life, and he was seeking to change it. And what really made him aware of it was he started debating after he published his screed, God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. Evangelicals, who by and large live in red states, began challenging him to debate. And Christopher mocked them early on, and then decided, you know what, I like these people, and I like red state America. I think I like it quite a lot. And then the two of us took a couple of lengthy road trips together, one from DC, from his home in DC to mine here in Birmingham. And then we did another one through Yellowstone National Park. But I could see that for him, it was a revelation. And he said to me, again, a guy who, very thoughtful guy, well educated, but Christopher said to me on multiple occasions that he'd never been in red state America. Not really. He had maybe, I think he said in the 1960s, taken some kind of road trip, but really didn't rub elbows with what we now call red staters. And he became a real critic of colleagues at places like the Atlantic and Vanity Fair and and places like that, where he was saying they really don't understand these people, and it's because they think they're better. They just think they're better, and they've never had any real experiences in these places. And so he began using these debates as an opportunity to engage in these kind of places, and discovered how much he really, and I mean genuinely was enjoying himself. He was very he loved Sasha. He thought Sasha was just hysterical, and he got along very well with my boys and members of our staff. He was quite gracious with all of them, and it was because it was opening. It was a world opening to him that previously he didn't know existed. And I think a lot of guys like Piers Morgan fall into that category of thinking they know what's happening with, let's say, migrant caravans, coming to the United States, or what's happening on the border because they read an article in the New York Times, or they think they understand, red states, or they think they understand the plight of girls, who suffered at Rotherham. But they don't. And it's because they never really bothered to get out of their safe spaces, their safe zones, and enter into these places where it might get a little uncomfortable for them. And so what do? They get up in the morning, put on their slippers, their bathrobe, punch the coffee maker, go and watch a little bit of BBC or CNN, maybe read a column or two in the New York Times, and then they begin pontificating and telling the rest of us what the world is like. And that's just bullshit.
It's so interesting that I'm always interested in motivation, because actors are trained in motivation. So I'm so interested in what motivates people to lie to themselves. Like, I can understand an alcoholic lying to himself or herself, because you go, well, I don't, I mean, because you want to maintain their the thing that the booze gives you or the drugs give you or whatever it
We
is.
rationalize, yeah.
I get that. What I don't understand is why people would choose to be intellectually dishonest. And what I do hugely respect is people that when they reach the moment when they gain a sort of closer proximity to judgment, that they will realize that you have to engage with the people that you naturally you find contemptible. Whereas I don't have contempt for an atheist. I don't. It's not contempt. I treat like the entire. If I was in charge of Britain tomorrow, my immigration policy would be: you've got lots of Islamic countries. You go and stay over there, do all of your raping and murdering, and your women love being covered up. You go and do it. I'm not going to invade. I don't care. You get on with it. Here we don't do that. So I'm a sort of, and I think it's one of the great weaknesses of the common sense movement is because common sense is so uncommon that we end up going. Chris Hitchens is sat in a car with you, going, "I'm coming towards an epiphany," which is the very people that I was taught to, or I've made money from disparaging. I now am going to turn around and defend with every single fiber of my being because every single human life matters and is sacred and is told to us by the scripture. It's so it's maddening in so many ways because I don't want to be necessarily very muscular about the way that I think, but I feel like I have to be because the way that they speak to me is so difficult to deal with. They go, "You're a racist, you're this, you're that." And I'm like, I'm really not any of those things. I do not like your. Someone said to me the other day, and I'm going to not say who said it because it was because I agreed with every single word they said. I said, it's the idea that the fleshly world is the dominion of the devil. And where is the devil? And they went, Islam is the devil. It's Satan on earth. If you want to see it, it's there right in front of your eyes. And I
I just want
agree.
to point out that if anybody killed this episode, it's you. But anyway, if
Yeah,
YouTube
well,
suppresses this episode,
well,
it's you. I'm innocent on this occasion, but you continue, and I
they
agree with every
will.
word.
They will. But I want to live in a world where God, if God is great, okay, so God doesn't, I'm not a threat to God. It's like, just even rationally, if you believe in the idea, if you believe in God, if you believe in the idea of God, like if you're gays for Gaza and you're like, we believe that these Islamists are being oppressed and the gays can solve it, you're believing in God. If you believe in that, you believe that God cannot be mocked. I mean, you can mock God and you'll be punished for it, but he doesn't sit there and go, "Oh God, you know." You're really offending me. It's like if you're offending me, I'll show you you're offending me. Your life will be exactly how I wish it to be. Anyway, I'm rambling now because
Well, listen. Let me give you an example from your own country of what I'm talking about. When we're talking about the elitists, don't call them elites. They are elitists, and the kind of people who've now turned on you that you're talking about. That's lovely, by the way.
sorry,
That's
I'm just stroking out my hair because
You look like the heat miser. You probably aren't familiar with that, but it's Christmas time. Look up heat miser. You look a little bit like the heat miser. But somebody I think who moved beyond that and who did it brilliantly is Jeremy Clarkson. Let's
yeah.
take for instance his show Clarkson Farm. People, if you haven't seen it, it's fabulous. Watch it because it's more than about farming. It's a look at the absurdity of socialism in Britain through Jeremy Clarkson's wit. But when that show first came out, I turned on the very first episode, and I think we're now in like season 5. I turned on the very first episode and I thought, oh gosh, he is going to use his celebrity and he's going to use his ability to edit and do whatever wants. He's going to mock all of these farmers. He's going to
Mm,
present them all as a bunch of toothless, backward, cousin marrying
mm,
sorts, and he did nothing of the kind. He makes himself the butt of the joke most of the time, and brilliantly. I mean, he has fun with the fact that sometimes he can't understand, the older guy, what he says, but his love for him is so genuine and so real. And then you have Caleb, the boy who comes and really kind of runs the farm for him and tells him what an idiot he is and how embarrassed he is at the rows he's creating and this kind of thing. But Jeremy Clarkson decided, you know what, I'm moving to the countryside and I'm going to engage with people who aren't part of the celebrity class. I'm going to see what the real world is like. And it has softened him. It has brought out a heart for him. And guess what? Now his cause is he's championing farmers.
Yeah.
Against the celebrity class, against the political class, and it's been brilliant. And I just love that, and I love that because I am for the average guy who doesn't have that kind of wealth, doesn't have that kind of power, and who needs to be defended, and who isn't for the most part.
Who else is there to be for? And then it comes right back to the message, which is the message has to be able to be understood by everybody, clever, stupid, whatever. You have to be able to understand the simplicity of the message. And Clarkson, you're right about Clarkson. By making yourself the butt of the joke, what he makes a much more powerful point about what socialism is, which is anti-message. It's all about messaging, but it's not about the message. And the message is, as we've discovered in our conversation this evening, is about beauty, how one identifies, what are the different roles between men and women, how does one actually identify, and what you identify with is beauty, you identify with truth, you identify with hope, you identify with home, you identify with your wife, you identify with your children, that's what you identify with. Your entire identity is built around it. If none of them were here, you'd be sitting around picking your scrotum, watching college football. I've just done it again. The YouTube algorithm goes, he said scrotum.
I'm sure scrotum is fine on here. You're just not allowed to say anything about the alphabet mafia.
Female
You're
scrotum.
not allowed to say anything
Female
about the
scrotum.
religion of peace.
My female scrotum.
Yeah, well, there you go. You're probably allowed to say that. But we have now reached the end of this show. I do want to say this as we conclude. Maybe you pick up on this as you watch this, people. But what we wanted WTF to be is just you listening in to the kind of conversations we have in real life. I don't text him ahead of time and say, hey, let's discuss this, or you go and read this article or that article. That may be worth doing on some occasions, but we just kind of come in here and we talk. And sometimes it's the political issues that are happening. Sometimes it's something personal that's happening. Sometimes it's just life. It's just life. And you're just these are the kind of conversations we have on my porch when we're smoking cigars. So, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Laza, for being with us. This has been another episode of WTF, World of Taunton Fox.
God bless.
You too, brother.